Good. All right, so we're joined from Houston, Texas, by my friend Brittany King, founder of Amplify Allyship, talent acquisition, HR specialists all over the country. We thank you so much for joining us. We've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. This is our business law class, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for fitting us in your schedule today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Now, obviously, we want to talk about all the different things that you've done and all the things that are important for our young people to know when it comes to job searches and when it comes to communication and when it comes to working as a team in business. But just give us a little background. You went to Stephen F. Austin there in Nacogdoches, Texas, home of the Lumberjacks. And so
Yes.
just take us through your educational background and how you kind of got into this space.
Well, first, good morning to your incredible students in your business law class. I'm actually in Chicago, Illinois right now.
Oh,
And so I'm
cool.
going to be very candid in this conversation. Yeah, I'm here to see a client. I'm doing an event with Google later this week. And so I'm here, but I will answer your question. I think it's important for me to know I barely graduated high school, not because I wasn't capable. I simply was not interested. And so I went to Stephen F. Austin and became a teen mom almost right away. Had a very beautiful upbringing. My mom and my dad have been married for 46 years, but they were kind of strict. And so I basically went to college and went crazy. And realized, though, when I became a mom at 19 years old, that education was really going to be my outlet. And so I graduated and went off to do a myriad of incredible things by God's grace.
That's incredible. Now, I know before you opened your own platform here, you spent a lot of time in talent acquisition and human resources. You dealt with a lot
Yeah,
of applications. You dealt with a lot of interviews. You dealt with a lot of recruiting when it comes to looking for
sure.
candidates in a variety of fields. And even though every company is field specific, they're going to look for certain skills, certain degrees, certain
Yeah.
certifications. We all know that. But at the end of the day, all of these groups are going to have pretty much the same thing when it comes to looking for people that set themselves apart. So I have kids all
Yes.
the time tell me, I want to do XYZ and I want to have XYZ career. That's great. Now
Hmm.
we got to work on how to sell yourself. And they have trouble getting up and even speaking. You know, small things like going in a room and introducing yourself, small things like spelling errors,
Yes.
small things like formatting resumes. So, as somebody that has over
Hmm.
10 years in this field, and you have looked at thousands of applications and made thousands of phone calls and worked with thousands of clients, what are some of the main things you're seeing young people make mistakes on as they do these job searches?
That's a really good question. And I'll be very honest. I'm going to speak to you after having 15 years in corporate America, but also as someone like, again, barely graduated high school. I had a 1.9 GPA my first semester. So I was not this check the box candidate. A lot of times people are asking, how do I get jobs when it says I need experience? So I need experience, but I can't get the job to get the experience. And I'm going to say something that I think is important, and that is qualify yourself. And what I mean by that is you have to be able to articulate the value that you can add to any workforce. Whenever I go to a networking session or event, 9 times out of 10, I want to go by myself because I don't want to have the comfort of my friends and people I know so that it can force me to get out there and make connections. The other thing, like people talk a lot about your 30-second elevator pitch. You should be able to answer the question very, very quickly. I help who do what. So for me, as a founder and CEO of Amplify Allyship, I help organizations use allyship as a competitive advantage, right? So you need to be able to answer that question. And then going back to the elevator pitch, everyone is going to networking events. Everyone is entering those rooms saying, "Hi, my name is Brittany King. I'm looking for a job as a XYZ." I never do that. Like I will literally walk up to people who are talking and be like, "Hey, my name's BK. I'm your neighborhood hope dealer." That means I deal hope with my words. So I think about something that I could say that's very different from what everyone else in the room is going to say. Because your job as a job seeker is to make yourself stand out. I think often people assume like recruiters, hiring managers, leaders are looking for people, they're looking for the right candidate. First, they want to get all the wrong candidates out. So you have to make yourself memorable? What is it that you could do or say when you enter a room? And if you're not confident, people can tell, right? So practice in the mirror. I do this now. And I've had the honor to work at some of the world's most incredible brands, but it is like, I'm BK. This is what I do. This is how I can help you. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and then it's all about when it comes to putting yourself on paper, it's about putting things that are measurable, putting things that are specific. I just cringe when I have a student hand me a resume that they've done for class and it says, I am good at this. Good according to who?
No.
And look, I understand when you're
Yes.
16, 17 years old, you can't have a lot of work experience, but you can still find things that you can say, I've supervised children for 7 months. I was able
Mm-hmm.
to cut X amount of yards for this amount of time. That shows work ethic and it shows work
Yes.
experience. So finding things that are specific,
Yes.
and if you have a bad GPA, you don't need to put it on there, but put your test scores, put how many months you've done
Right.
things, all the programs you've used in high school. They're all watching you right
Yep.
now on their MacBooks. They've all got experience with the iOS operating system. They
Mm-hmm.
don't think about that, but that's something an employer might want to know.
Yes. 100%. You need to over index on tell people you need to think about what I call the MSAs. A's, how you made a company money, saved a company money, and what you achieved. Now, your students may not have necessarily made or saved a company money, but they certainly have achievements. I, as someone who barely graduated high school, didn't do good my first semester in college, I was in so many organizations, so many activities, and I would literally go to my professor and say, like, what am I missing on my resume? What do I need to add? You should be asking 3 to 5 people at least twice a year to give you feedback that you can add to your resume. The other thing is, like, if you're not on LinkedIn, you need to be on LinkedIn now, particularly younger generations. They want to be on like Instagram and, all these Snapchat. 4 out of 5 profiles on LinkedIn have the power to make business decisions. So that is critical. If you start now with the LinkedIn post, find the people who have the jobs that you want and simply ask them for a 30-minute conversation. I'm a high school student. There's not a high school student on the planet that could DM me right now and say, hey, I'm going to have a 30-minute conversation with you about how you worked at Facebook, how you worked with Grammarly or Discord, that I would say no to because nobody is doing it. So a part of that is setting yourself for success. I'm a little bit non-traditional. Like, yes, have your resume formatted. Yes, focus on your results. But I'm also thinking about in this day and time, you have to think outside of the box. When I got my job at Facebook, I wrote a post about I don't even remember what it was, but like I wrote a post and the hiring manager reached out to me and said, hey, I have a job that's coming up. We have not posted it, but I want you. Simply from a LinkedIn post. So I got the job without having applied for it, without having, like gone through the typical processes. And so you need to think about what are the things you can do to stand out. If you like, for example, I'm here speaking today. All of you should be Googling me on LinkedIn or Googling me and then reaching out on LinkedIn saying, hey, I want to connect with you. My very first job out of college, I had a speaker come. I was in undergraduate school and he came and he was speaking about human resources. I went straight up to him after the talk and I said, hey, my name is Brittany King and I would love to work for you. And he was like, well, I don't have a job. 3 months later, he called me and offered me a job simply because I asked. So it's yes, the resume is important, right? But what can you do to stand out in a sea of resumes? I don't care how good your resume is. If you look like everyone else, if it's cookie cutter, what can you do to set yourself apart?
Yeah, and then I tell you, and I tell these little quick anecdotes all the time, and some of these I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it, because you talk about they want to
Yeah.
get rid of the bad ones. It's amazing how many people can stand out and then make stupid mistakes once they stand out. And I'll never forget this. And people, I
Yep.
swear this is 100% true story. When I was working at LSU back in 2006, we had several
Mhm.
positions posted. We had sent out invitations for interviews. These candidates looked great on paper. This woman walks right in the door and looked me right in the face. And I said, hey, how can we help you? And she goes, I'm here for the interview. I said, oh, that's great. Who's your interview with? And without missing a beat, she goes, I don't know. Let me go check in the car.
Oh,
So immediately I'm
no.
telling the hiring person, I was like, she didn't even know who she was interviewing with. And if what I remember, she
Yeah.
had a lot of experience, but she was a horrible first impression. And I saw this one and I wouldn't have believed it
Yep.
if I didn't. When I was working in retail cell phone sales, we had a position open. This girl who great application couldn't find the store.
Yeah,
Never called ahead and say, "Hey, I need directions." Never used Google Maps, and she was an hour and a half late
right.
because she said, "I live out of town. I didn't know how to get here." Well, if you're that stupid, they're not going to give you the job anyway. So little small things like
No,
that.
because you're not invested.
Yeah. And then
And
one
to your
more.
point, Greg, like you never
Oh,
get
go ahead.
I
No, go
was
ahead.
gonna say to your point, like you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? I've had a candidate come to an interview with pajamas on, and I'm like, right? And if you're coming to the like life happens, right? But if you're coming to the interview with pajamas on, it's better for you to reschedule because no one, like I may give you grace, but the hiring manager and other people will not. So I just think you have to remember, and I want to talk about like professional dress too. You need to dress for the job that you want and not the job that you have. And so, as high school students, you may be thinking, like, oh, I'm a high schooler. But if you have aspirations to one day be a CEO, you need to go get you a suit, right? You need to have, and listen, I'm someone who will wear a bright pink blazer at this point in my career. Early on, though, you kind of have to like think about what your long-term career goals are. So before people even hear a word out of your mouth, once you've gotten to the interview process, they see you. So you need to be thoughtful about your appearance and what you're wearing because it matters.
Yeah, and another one, and you talked about not being prepared. I'll never forget this one, and this is the last one I'll tell like this. But when I was working at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee, I was interviewing several students for some positions we had, and one of them looked me right in the face and goes, "Now, what job is this again?" So, little small things like that. And again, this was a person that looked great on paper, but you've got to find a
Yeah.
way to stand out.
And there's no excuse to go into a job interview like that, right? We have the internet. So every single time you go into an interview, number one, you need to be asking the recruiter. If you have questions, you need to ask them before you get in an interview. A recruiter is oftentimes your biggest advocate and ally. I've been a recruiter, I've been a hiring manager, I've led teams of recruiters, right? So you need to say to them, is there anything I should know about this hiring manager, their personality? What they like, what they're looking for. Good recruiters will tell you, but you also need to ask. I believe like you can't hold people accountable for what they don't know. So it's no excuse for you to go in and say, I don't know what job I'm interviewing for. The second part of that, though, is because we have the internet, and everyone shares a lot online, even people that you're interviewing with, you should be researching the recruiter, the hiring manager, every single person that you connect with so that you know, oh, they grew up in the same city as me. Oh, they're a part of this organization that I'm a part of. Oh, they have a dog named whatever, right? Like you need to think about what points of connections can you make to come into an interview and be prepared. Again, your job is to stand out. So that's another thing that I think is critically important.
Now, along those same lines, and you talked a little bit about this, and something that happened here, a few months ago, I wasn't even trying to find this person, and one of our seniors that's here now with Velma Jackson, I found something he had posted, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So if employers are going to look and see what you're putting up, if you're posting stuff with a bunch of guns and
Yeah,
money, and you're trying to act like you're a
yeah,
gangster, everything that you post is
right.
political, no matter what side it is. People don't want to deal with that in the workplace. So,
Yes,
how important is it to really control
they
the
don't.
narrative you're putting out about yourself?
Here's the thing, you control the narrative or someone else will control it for you. So you have to be very thoughtful about how you show up online. And there's this idea of like unofficial reference checks. So typically you're not supposed to complete a reference check until an offer has been extended. However, hiring managers do backdoor reference checks all the time. They will Google you on social media. So if you look me up online, now that I'm self-employed, I show up a lot more differently than I did when I was in corporate spaces because you have to comply. You have to comply. And so, what I would recommend that every student does today is literally go look at all their social media platforms, even the ones you think people can't see, even the things you think is hidden are hidden, and like go back far because we don't want to see, like, yes, I want to see what you posted recently, but I was a recruiter who would look like years and years and years because I didn't want my candidates to have any problems, right? So, you do need to scrub your social media profiles and make sure that your employer is going to see things that are compelling to them, that make them feel like, oh, this is a good hire, not a risk. I don't want someone that's going to cause me a lawsuit or behavioral issues or the attitude problems. None of that. Right. And so I think social media is great, but you have to use it. You have to use it well.
Yeah, and I actually had an employer that I knew call me off the record one time and goes, "Hey, this person I saw that you guys are mutual friends. She applied for one of our jobs. What can you tell me about her?" And it wasn't even an official reference check. So people are going to check that and they're going to see
Yeah.
who you know.
That's,
And now I was more than happy to give her a
yeah,
great
that's a
recommendation,
backdoor.
but they were looking from the start. Now
Yes.
I know you mentioned
100%.
you're very involved in DEI and the hiring issues, and
Yeah.
I'm not here to get into a political debate with anybody, but facts are facts, and this is what I always say.
Sure.
You can say whatever you want about things need to be
Yeah.
merit based, and they do, but I always say we wouldn't have needed DEI if there had not been preconceived notions and literally laws on the books keeping certain groups out of certain spaces. So even if there is nothing on the books to
Right.
say this has to be this way, people are going to still view certain groups certain ways, certain genders certain ways, certain races certain ways. And right or wrong,
Hmm.
you can
Hmm.
say it's right or wrong all day long, but facts are facts, fair, not fair. It's just the way that it is. So, as you know, I have a room now with
Yes.
all young black kids and a lot of talent in here, a lot of
Yeah.
intellect in here, a lot of potential in here. But what can they do
Yeah.
when they're walking into these rooms to maybe not have people have those preconceived notions about them?
Yeah, well, number one, you hold your head up high. You walk in with confidence and understand that if you're in a room, like you've been assigned to that room, right? I think you need to be intent on solving problems that other people do not solve. So I'll tell you this is a business law class. In my mind, I'm an attorney who went to Harvard, right? This is me making it up in my mind. So although I was in HR, although I led DEI and talent acquisition, I would always make it a point to embed myself into legal teams. What does that mean? So I'm working in HR, but I want to talk to the compliance and the legal team about what do they need from a talent acquisition perspective to mitigate risk for them. So outside of the scope of what I was doing, I realized that as a Black woman, I needed to be better. And I'm first generation corporate. People talk a lot about being first generation college. I was
Oh,
the first
cool.
person in my family to be like to be in corporate and to be in a leadership position. So I had to think about the skills that would literally make me irreplaceable. If I'm able to have the chief of staff come to me and say, "Hey, BK, I need you to draft this policy for this, bring it back to me and I'll sign off on it." I then had the backing of someone totally out of my area and high up. So I would say, like, be confident in who you are, recognize that you've been assigned to the rooms, but also solve problems that your peers are not thinking of solving.
Yeah, and a great example of that, I love the movie Miracle, and it's about the U.S. hockey team in 1980, and the coach uses a great line in that movie. He said, "You have to perform at a level that forces me to keep you here." So whether or not
Yes,
whatever they think about the way you look or the way they might think you act, if you can show that you can perform at a higher level, they have to keep you. Literally, their jobs
yes,
depend on it. So
they
if
have
you can
to.
show that you can do that, it doesn't matter what any of the
Absolutely.
preconceived notions are.
Mm-mm,
Um,
mm-mm. And here's the thing, like it's not your job to change their mind about anything. It's your job to show up and perform, right? And as a black young adult, you need to perform at a high level regardless. And so you need to be thoughtful about entering these spaces and not only doing your job, but literally doing it to the best of your ability that way. One of the things that I will say, a brag book, all of y'all need to have that. What does that mean? If you have a teacher, if you have a community leader who is giving you positive feedback, ask them to write that down. Can you email it to me? That way you have borrowed credibility from someone at a higher level to say, here's the value that I could add. When you get into the workplace, do the same thing. Every time someone says, "Oh, thank you, BK, you did a great job," it should go into your brag book. So that time that performance reviews come around, you're able to say, here are all the incredible things that I've done, and here are the people who said that I've done great, right? And so you have like this history of excelling. So that's the other thing.
Awesome. Now, before I get to their questions, there's something I love talking about, and I talk with every guest about this because last class period we did
Mhm.
presentations, and it's not about making anybody nervous or anything, but it's about learning those communication skills now in high school because you can't do business the way you text.
Hmm.
You can't do business with the way you talk on Snapchat. I don't care who you are. I
Yes.
always say you have to speak like the person you're talking to has no idea what you're talking about. And if you're ever going to say
Hmm.
you're going to be anything in business, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur of any sort, you've got to have those sales
Yeah.
skills, know how to sell
Yeah.
yourself, know how to sell a product, know how to sell an idea. So as they start transitioning from high school into their next steps, why is it so important to at least get comfortable speaking to a small group of? I mean, me and you can speak in front of thousands, and everybody doesn't have that ability, and that's fine. But you've got to be able to
Yeah. Yeah.
speak in small groups all the time. So why is that so important to learn now in high school?
Communication skills can make or break your career. So we talked about owning your narrative or other people doing it for you. If you are not practicing the art of public speaking, you are essentially saying, I'm not committed to my career success, right? And so, Greg, yes, like you and I could speak to thousands of people. We've done that. You should literally find speakers that you like to hear. I don't care if it's a performer, an artist, whatever. Look how they present themselves in interviews, right? Who are the people that are most compelling? You should be thinking about your ability to communicate as the critical driver of your success. It is literally the thing that will set you up. And I mean, written and like verbal, right? I always say, like, there's not a mic I don't like, right? And that's my personality. But at the very same time, I've been doing public speaking since I was 18 years old. A teacher wanted me to speak at a school board meeting, and I went and I didn't stop. It's uncomfortable. Data shows that most people would rather die than do public speaking. The sooner you master the art of public speaking, the quicker your career success will be. And that is just the truth. And just remember, the people that you're speaking to are humans just like you. Like there's not, they're all people. So I know it could be intimidating, but practice the art of public speaking. Record yourself on a Zoom meeting, record yourself on your phone. And my phone is over here recording now, so I could go back and watch this, even though I've spoken alongside Miss America and people from Harvard and people, that have worked with all these people. I'm always going to go back and look to see how I performed. So it's critical, super important.
Absolutely. Well, I do have some questions from the students, and I'll get to as many of these as I can. And I like this first one.
Wonderful.
Uh, and I think this is a great question. This is Edward Flowers. He's in 10th grade, one of our baseball players, and he's in the band here. And he asked, what are some minuscule things that you think people overlook when it comes to job seeking?
Ooh, Edward, great question. Hope you do exceptional in baseball and band. Some of the minuscule things that I think people overlook, I'll be really honest, is appearance. That's like I'm gonna be very, very honest. Like I've had a direct report join a meeting with a do-rag on, and I'm like, yes, you could come to meetings with me with that on, but not other people, right? I think it's very small things that set you apart. If you are a young man, go get a watch, right? Like this watch is from Amazon. It was like $10. Nobody knows, right? Wear a belt, learn how to tie a tie. Those simple things in terms of your appearance precedes you before you get to say a word. And so those are some of the things that I think is important to you. So Ed, that's what I would say is important and often overlooked.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to tie a tie, they can bring it to me. I'll tie it for them. That's no problem at all. This is
There you
Kamani
go.
Wright. He's in ninth grade, one of our state runner-up power lifters here. And he asked, "What are the things that keep you motivated and pushing you the most in life?"
Did you say his name was Kamani?
Yes.
Okay, hey Kamani, ninth grade power lifter. I love it. Tells me that you're incredibly strong. Some of the things that keep me motivated, I mentioned like being a mom of two. I will tell you that my daughters are my inspiration. I have a daughter who's a junior in college and one that's going to ninth grade. But also, I think even beyond that is like making an impact on the world. I want the world to be better when I leave this world than it was here. And I left corporate America. I had an incredible job. I made a lot of money. But I do believe like this is my work. This is worship for me, and what I've been called to do. And it's just this passion to make the world a better place for people like you, Kamani, and people like Ed who are coming up behind me.
Love it. This is Levon Johnson. He's in 10th grade. And this is a great question, because he said, you talk about allyship. What are some things that people don't realize is hard about dealing with coworkers?
Oof, that's good. I think you said Levon, I'm sorry.
Levon,
Um,
Levon.
Levon. Okay, so what's hard about working with coworkers is the same thing that you see in school. So think about group projects. Some people don't do their part on the group projects. Some people you just don't mesh with, right? In a work setting, though, it does not matter. It doesn't matter if you don't mesh. It doesn't matter if you don't like them. You are there to perform a job. Allyship, for me, I defined it as the intentional act of aligning with behaviors that are in the best interest of everyone. I'm a former DEI practitioner, but I don't believe DEI is the answer because it's kind of like an us versus them. Any of us can be or need an ally at any time. So your coworker that you may not get along with, they may have just lost someone very close to them. You don't ever know what people are going through. And so I think it's important to realize like you will have friction. You're not there to make friends. That's another thing. I think some people think like coworkers are meant to be your friends. No, they're your coworkers, right? They're not your family. And so you're meant to work with them and do your best. And so I would say give people grace, be kind to people. Human kindness is powerful medicine. And just know that like you will find some friends there. You will find people you like, but also be open to finding people who are not like you. That is what allies do.
Big time. Love it. All right, I got time for two more. This is Zayden Reed.
Okay.
She's in 10th grade. And I love this question. And we didn't really get to talk about this, but I like that she's thinking about it. What are the biggest pros and cons of self-employment?
Ooh, this is a great question I think about all the time. So I mentioned, I think you said Zayden Reeves. Zayden, I mentioned like I had a really nice job, lots of benefits, crazy sign-on bonus, health insurance. Now, here I'm gonna talk to you about the cons first. Now I have to pay for all of those things. And so what was easy about corporate for me was I knew I was going to get my check every 2 weeks. I knew I was going to have my health insurance. Every year I got a nice bonus. And so it was like this level of consistency. So you lose out on that in in entrepreneurial endeavors. However, what I love, and to me, what's a pro is the ability to literally set your own schedule and to drive your revenue however high you would like it to go. In corporate, I had a salary and I had a bonus, and maybe I could get a little bit more of my bonus based on my performance. But this, I literally own the level of income success that I have. Now, people often think like, oh, you have flexibility. Yes. But going from corporate where you had one boss to entrepreneurship, like now I have like 100 little bosses because I have all these different clients who need different things, right? And so I think that that's hard. The other thing that I would say is a bit of a challenge is like when I worked at these big companies, I had all of these systems and software and team to support me. I now have to like hire the team. I have to figure out all the systems, whether or not I understands accounting or what, like I have to do all of that. And so it's like anything else, right? Corporate is what you make it, entrepreneurship is what you make it. I've always been an entrepreneur and I just decided to go all in on that. But it's definitely a different set of challenges and a different set of rewards. That's a great
Love it.
question, by the way.
Yeah, and I always say it's not like the Jasmine Sullivan song where she says, "I'm going to move to Atlanta, open a business, and be rich." There's a lot of work involved, but there's definitely uh,
Yes.
I always say the demand is high, but the rewards are great. All right, I got one more. This is Rondell
Yeah.
Ellis. He's in 10th grade, and he asked, "Do you have any regrets of anything you've done along your journey?"
Yeah, Rondell, great question. I would say, like, I wish I had taken my academic journey more seriously in high school. When I went to college, even my first semester, like my parents were very strict, so I didn't do anything. So first semester, I was like, I'm doing all the things, right? And although I graduated with a good GPA and I ended up being like a student tutor, so I was academically capable, I just did not take it seriously. When I started to take it seriously, things changed for me. Like I don't watch a lot of TV, I read books because there's the mind of so many other intelligent people I get access to. So that is the one thing that I wish I could change is taking that seriously. The other thing is like acknowledging the adults who were really cheering for me. I often felt like they were just being hard and I was like, leave me alone. Like I'm a kid, I want to be a kid, but they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so those people who are adults who may be challenging you, who you feel like, oh, they get on my nerves, they're doing this over and over, it is genuinely because they care about you. So I wish I had honored them at that time in a better way. So that's what I would say there.
Love it. And again, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us
Yes.
and adjusting for us. But a couple things before we go. First of all, I always say, and you mentioned it too, it's so important to follow the positive people on social media. Get things
Yes.
that can lift you up. I love the celebrities and the athletes too, but I also try to follow people that can be encouraging. And you're a great social media follow. So tell us where they can find you and see some of the things you put out there.
Yeah, so anywhere you go, you can find me at Hope Dealer BK, HOPE Dealer BK, anywhere online. I know I should be on Instagram, y'all, but I'm an old lady, okay? You'll see me on there, but I don't have a lot of stuff. LinkedIn is on there. You can check me out at amplifyallyship.com. I'm here to support your success. Thank you so much for having me, Greg. It was truly an honor and a joy.
Love it. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us. Brittany King, I thought she was in Houston, but she's all the way up on the shores of Lake Michigan in Chicago, Illinois. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. Take care, y'all.
I talk to you soon, buddy.